News Talk 1110 99.3 WBT. Bo Thompson with you, 720. Speaking of Brett Winterble, he'll join me coming up at 7:35. And later this morning, 7:50, John Hancock on the legacy of Sharon Sanders. We learned that Sharon Sanders passed away, the founder of Kids First, on Thursday morning. So Hancock and a special tribute coming up before the top of the hour here. Meantime, Vince Coakley had a chance over the weekend to speak with 9th District Congressman Dan Bishop, who is obviously getting set for Inauguration Week in Washington.
Obviously, we've learned since this time there have been a number of arrests, and those arrests are continuing across the country. As at the same time, we've got massive preparations underway for really extraordinary security. What is going through your mind when you see this, Dan Bishop? Did you ever imagine we would come to this point where we'd have this kind of presence for an inauguration?
The United States situation in the United States concerning the use of violence, which has just been plentiful from last spring through the summer and tailed off, but you had continuing eruptions of it in various places, and then you have this attack on the Capitol. Every American ought to be concerned about it. It is an enormously menacing, foreboding turn of events, as are a number of other things that kind of put Americans at each other's throats. So yeah, it's a big deal. And in terms of this specific event, I do believe that the right answer, once this has started, is to make sure that security preparations are adequate. And I would say, preliminarily, and I'm looking forward to seeing what all the investigations by committees uncover, but it's pretty evident to me that security precautions were not adequate given the presence of hundreds of thousands of protesters in Washington on the day of the electoral count. The Capitol was not prepared properly.
And as you know, the Democrat Party has led an effort with the impeachment against President Donald Trump, connecting him to the events of January 6th. Tell us how you voted in the impeachment and why.
I voted no, and it's very simple, Vince. It's hard for people who are impassioned to see this, but the First Amendment to the Constitution protects speech. And incitement speech is very specifically understood. It has to be involved specific language calling for unlawful conduct. There was no such thing. The federal government cannot punish a president for engaging in protected speech.
The control of national politics will be entirely in the hands of Democrats. They will have the White House, the Senate, and the House, which means that the Republicans are pretty much in a place of powerlessness, at least through the 2022 elections, until we get to that point. And it's kind of interesting, too. We talked about the likely rift that could be developing here with people like Liz Cheney, the number 3 Republican in the House, siding with the Democrats on impeachment, and there are calls for her to resign from her position. Dan Bishop, how does the Republican Party move forward in unity?
Vince, I think that there will be a period of time, just by virtue of the change in power. In the House, it's going to be more of the same, although we have a very close, our minority is only about 8 or so votes shy of the majority. So it's a pretty close deal. And Democrats have taken steps to avoid the certain arguments on the floor by removing the Republicans' power to do what's a maneuver called the motion to recommit, because they don't want to be called out in public or made or have their votes exposed. They're trying to sort of run from attention already. I imagine we'll bring attention to them, but in all areas, Republicans are going to take some time to sort and figure out how to go forward. So there are a lot of questions about that. I don't have all the answers. I do think that in the House, Kevin McCarthy's done a good job over time of keeping Republicans united, and we'll have to do whatever's necessary to achieve unity. One of the things I think people are whistling past the graveyard about, though, any of those maybe swampy kind of establishment Republicans who believe who are glad President Trump will be gone and think he's going to be forgotten. But President Trump brought an enormous energy to the Republican Party for whatever, whether somebody may be a fan or not, and those Republican leaders have to identify what the strategy is to make sure that people remain engaged. As for me, I've always been a fighter for people, and I intend to continue in that vein. I've the sentiment out there. I've never encountered sentiment that is more intense among people who feel abandoned, and I intend to do everything within my power to argue for them.
Are you optimistic that the party will be able to come together, especially in time for the 2022 election season? I do think that I think with the questions that remain about what happened in this election, I think that there's a heck of a lot of interest and enthusiasm, and maybe enthusiasm is not the right word, but and that's the way I can put it, as I said before, is intensity of feeling among Republicans that will go somewhere. And I think, I believe that Republicans will get organized, will get past the current events, will straighten out leadership and get that oriented, pulling with the team and move in the right direction. But it's going to take, I've always said to people, in a group I was with the other night, giving up is no option. Never is that an option in the United States. And we do face challenges we've never seen here before in my lifetime and yours, Vince. And but those who say more radical ideas and so forth that would take America down a path to destruction, that needs to be resisted. And Republicans need to find ourselves squarely in support of the rights and freedoms under the Constitution that have proved themselves over time as the superior ideas for human flourishing in a society. And I intend to stand right in that ground and continue to call for that.
That's Congressman Dan Bishop joining Vince Coakley over the weekend here on News Talk 1110.